Hello, and welcome back to Pittsburgh Transit Ideas. I'm Mike Lepato. Anyone who drives around Pittsburgh at night is almost bound to come across an impaired driver somewhere around the city, and maybe even several per night. DUI is a pretty serious problem in Pittsburgh, and as a resident of the South Side, I see this quite often and quite starkly. The most common drunken argument that people have on my street is, of course, relationship drama. But the second most common argument people have is arguing over where they parked. Dude, we parked that way. No, we parked over there. I mean, if you can't find your car, you probably shouldn't be driving it. Every single weekend, I hear at least 4 or 5 groups of people having this same argument, and those are just the people having that particular argument in front of my house when I'm paying attention in one small corner of one nightlife district of the city. Individual responsibility is certainly at play here. We really should have more designated drivers and more people taking cabs. But one major reason for all of this drunk driving is a lack of alternatives. Transit in Pittsburgh simply does not run late into the night, even on major routes like the T and the busways. And for those living in some of the region's outer neighborhoods, missing a bus leaving downtown at even 7 or 8 p.m. might leave you stranded for the rest of the night. This causes a number of problems not only for the partygoers, but for several other groups as well, such as hospital workers, those working late night shifts in the service industry, and people who just want to be able to get home without the threat of drunk drivers. In other cities like New York and Rome, transit can sometimes be a bit complicated, slow, or unfriendly at night, but it's actually there. Rome, for instance, has a pretty wide variety of transit options during the day that can get a rider from pretty much anywhere in the city to pretty much anywhere else. At night, bus routes are significantly pared back and less frequent, but they still run, and riders actually have enough options to have a separate night bus map. Conversely, about 10 years ago, I worked at a restaurant in Bridgeville, and I remember having a coworker who, not making much more than minimum wage, needed to take a cab back to Monroeville whenever staff were held past 11 p.m. In this episode, I'm going to lay out my vision for night buses in Pittsburgh. This one's going to be a bit different than my previous episode, since this plan does actually have additional operating costs for Pittsburgh Regional Transit. But like my other episodes, this one still doesn't require new construction, and it's a cost that, at least in my opinion, is worth it to improve the lives of thousands of people in the Pittsburgh region. My plan consists of 3 elements. First, a frequent night loop that runs in both directions and takes people between the various nightlife districts surrounding the city center, hospitals, colleges, and vital city functions that operate at night like Amtrak, Greyhound, and the stadiums. Second, continued late night service on Pittsburgh's trunk routes such as the T and the East and West Busway, ideally combined into the East-West Busway like I described in episode 2. And third, a series of less frequent spoke routes that take people from the night loop and trunk routes back to their neighborhoods. On this section of the plan, I'm painting with a broad brush and probably missed a few important stops, but the general idea is to quickly get people from the city center to somewhere in the general ballpark of their neighborhood. While transit in Pittsburgh generally aims to get people as close as possible to home, these routes have a different purpose: to get people within about 2 or so miles of their home with as few stops and as few transfers as possible. Most of the people who would be taking night buses, college students, hospital workers, restaurant workers, and bar goers, are people who are capable of and often used to walking longer distances. And even for those who live far from the route or who can't or don't want to walk that far, having these routes available still makes things better, since they can now take a $10 local Uber from the local stop rather than a $30 Uber from the city center. Or for that matter, drive 2 miles drunk after a 30-minute rest rather than 10 miles drunk immediately after leaving the bar, which, while still not recommended, reduces risk at least a little bit for everyone involved compared to the alternative. Spoke routes would run at about 30 to 60-minute frequency throughout the night, with extra buses available in the 2 to 3 o'clock hour just after bars close in Pittsburgh. Spoke route starting points would be scattered across the loop to ensure that loop stops remain well populated and safer for both loop riders and those waiting for the spoke routes. And when intersecting with the loop, spoke route buses would wait for any nearby loop buses to arrive before leaving in order to ensure smooth transfers. If I did this correctly and you live in Allegheny County, there should be a pretty good chance that you'll see one of these spoke routes, if not a core route, come within about 2 miles of your house. Taking a closer look at the night loop, we start in the center of Pittsburgh's nightlife action, 18th Street and Carson. From there we go west on Carson and stop at 10th Street. The bus then continues along Carson until it reaches Station Square Drive, makes a right, and then stops in Station Square by the fountain, where connections are available across the street to the T and the Monongahela Incline, and at Highmark Stadium when there's an event there. After reaching West Carson again, the bus makes a left, stops at the Duquesne Incline, and takes the Fort Pitt and Fort Duquesne bridges to the North Shore. In the North Shore, it makes a stop at Allegheny Station, where it connects with the T and serves the casino in Heinz Field, and then another stop at North Shore Drive at the People's Gate. From there, the bus takes General Robinson Street and makes a stop at Federal Street, serving PNC Park and a number of local bars. We then cross the 7th Street Bridge, stop at Fort Duquesne Boulevard, at the Convention Center where Megabus operates, and then at 11th and Liberty to serve Amtrak, Greyhound, and provide a connection to the Busway route at Penn Station. Heading into the Strip District, the bus then stops at 16th and Liberty, 21st and Liberty, and 31st and Penn, merging onto Butler before heading toward Lawrenceville and making a stop at 40th and Butler. We then head toward the East End, stopping at Main and Penn, serving Children's Hospital, then at Liberty and the Bloomfield Bridge, followed by Monroeville Avenue at Liberty, serving West Penn Hospital. After coming out of Bloomfield, we make a left on Baum Boulevard, stop at Baum and Aiken, serving Shadyside Hospital, then make a right onto Negley, stopping at the Negley Station on the East Busway. The loop then continues to Shadyside, stopping at Walnut Street and Negley to serve the business district in Shadyside, then makes a right on 5th and heads toward Oakland. On 5th Avenue, we have stops at Aiken, at Morewood, serving Carnegie Mellon University, at Bigelow, serving the University of Pittsburgh, at Atwood, serving the UPMC hospitals, at Kraft, serving Carlow University and McGee Hospital, and finally at the Birmingham Bridge, serving Uptown and with a bit of walking, Oak Hill. Finally, our loop crosses the Birmingham Bridge, makes a right onto Carson Street, and stops at 21st before reaching our first stop back at 18th. Along the way, we've made connections to 14 different spoke routes. I'm not 100% sure of the path that these spoke routes are going to take, and as I've said, I've probably missed a few things in this section of the plan, but I'll present a few rough sketches here. I'm not going to cover these in quite as great a detail as the loop, but feel free to pause the video at any point to see any of these routes in a bit more detail. At 16th and Liberty, we have a connection to the A, which crosses the 16th Street Bridge and then takes 28, usually a traffic-free trip at night, directly to Harmer, before exiting at Freeport Road and serving Cheswick, Springdale, New Kensington, Arnold, Tarentum, Brackenridge, Natrona Heights, where it also serves Allegheny Valley Hospital, Harrison Township, and Freeport. Starting at the southern tip of Verona, we have the B, which stops in Verona and Oakmont before crossing the river and heading down Freeport Road through Blawnox, O'Hara, Aspinwall, where it serves St. Margaret Hospital and with a bit of walking, the VA Hospital, Sharpsburg, Etna, and Millville before crossing the 40th Street Bridge to meet our loop at 40th and Butler. It then continues on to serve Upper Lawrenceville before crossing the Fleming Bridge and taking 8 through Etna, Glenshaw, and Allison Park before arriving finally at UPMC Passavant and La Roche University. The C line meets the loop at Federal Street and stops at the Mexican War Streets and Allegheny General Hospital, Perry, Westview, Ross, and Candless, terminating at Wexford Hospital. The D line roughly follows the route of the 14 bus during the day and meets our loop at Allegheny Station before going up 65 to serve the Ohio River towns. On the D, we have stops at Manchester, Marshall Shadeland, Brighton Heights, Bellevue, Avalon, Ben Avon, Emsworth, Sewickley, serving Heritage Valley Hospital with a bit of walking, Edgeworth, Leedsdale, and Ambridge. Meeting the stop at Station Square and at the Duquesne Incline, we have the E, which follows Carson Street through the West End, Corliss, and Esplin before arriving in McKees Rocks. It then makes a right onto Broadway following that road, regardless of name change, through West Park and Kennedy to Coriopolis, then goes north on 51 to Robert Morris University. The F line is a bit different and one of only 2 of our spoke routes that doesn't meet the loop. It does, however, meet the busway. The F starts in McDonald and follows Noblestown Road through Sturgeon, Noblestown, Oakdale, and Rennerdale before meeting the busway at Carnegie Station. It then takes Carothers Avenue to Hope Hollow and Swallow Hill, stops at St. Clair Hospital, and then follows Bower Hill to Bridgeville. The G and the H should already be familiar to most Pittsburghers since they're simply runs of the T, but at night. The G is the red line through Beachview to South Hills Village, and the H is the silver line through Overbrook to Library. The I line is similar to the 51 bus during the day, but a bit longer to cover other routes that are no longer in service. It starts at 18th and Carson and goes up 18th Street and later Brownsville Road through Mount Oliver, Carrick, and Brentwood. In Brentwood, it makes a left onto 51, where it continues on to Baldwin, Pleasant Hills, Jefferson Hills, where it serves Jefferson Hospital, and finally Elizabeth. Meeting our loop at 21st and Carson, the J line is a Mon River route that follows River Road in its various names and forms until arriving in McKeesport, stopping along the way at Beck's Run, Homestead, Whitaker, Kennywood Park, Duquesne, and West Mifflin. Once it arrives in McKeesport, it serves UPMC McKeesport Hospital, travels down Lyle Boulevard and Monongahela Avenue, and makes a stop in Glassport before heading across the river to its final stop in Clairton. Like the F, the K is our East Busway connector. It starts at the Swissvale station at the end of the East Busway, meanders through some local streets in Braddock Hills before making a right at Route 30, and then stops in Forest Hills, Chalfont, North Braddock, East Pittsburgh, and North Versailles. In North Versailles, it takes 148 south to East McKeesport, where it takes Hartman Street and Eden Park Boulevard to Versailles before eventually terminating in Boston. The L line covers many of the eastern neighborhoods missed by the K. It starts in Hazelwood before going through Greenfield and the Run before meeting the loop in Oakland at Kraft Avenue. It then travels through Shenley Park, stopping at Carnegie Mellon University, and following Forbes Avenue to Squirrel Hill. Once the Fern Hollow Bridge is reopened, it would cross Frick Park, make a right onto Braddock Avenue, and then stop at Regent Square, Edgewood, and the Swissvale Station on the East Busway. It then follows Braddock Avenue and the Triborough Expressway to serve Braddock, Turtle Creek, Wimbledon, Pitcairn, and Trafford before doubling back and taking Haymaker Road to Forbes Hospital and UPMC East. The M is our last true spoke route, starting in Highland Park and traveling down Negley Avenue until it meets the loop at Negley Station on the busway. It then goes to East Liberty, where it connects with the busway again, and then follows Frankstown Avenue to Larimer, Homewood, East Hills, and various neighborhoods of Penn Hills, including Eastwood, Laketon Heights, Frankstown Estates, and Crescent Hills. At Salzburg Road, it turns right, heading past Alcoma, Universal, and Regency Park before turning around in North Bessemer. And our final route is not exactly a spoke route, but a crosstown, hence its name, the X. The X meets the T downtown at Gateway Center and Steel Plaza in its loop using 4th and 5th Avenues. It then travels up 5th to Uptown, stopping at Duquesne University and Mercy Hospital before turning up Crawford Street to the Hill District. Once in the Hill District, the X follows Center Avenue, where it makes local stops at Dinwiddle, Kirkpatrick, Robinson Street, Bigelow, Moorwood, and Aiken, which also serves Shadyside Hospital, before meeting the Loop, the Busway, and the M at Negley Avenue. So how exactly do we fund this? Well, to be quite honest, I'm not really sure. I'll leave that as an exercise to the good folks at Pittsburgh Regional Transit. One interesting idea, though, suggested by one of my coworkers, would be to have double fares on the spoke routes. This already has a precedent in Washington, D.C., which, prior to the pandemic, treated Friday and Saturday nights like rush hours and charged people a rush hour fare to use the metro at night. People might complain about having high fares, but having more expensive transit available at night is better than having none at all, and a $6 bus ride is still better than a $30 Uber. Over the years, PRT has dabbled into running 1 or 2 night routes, only to cancel them shortly afterward due to a lack of ridership. The problem, as I see it though, is that they've never had a complete night system. Ridership is going to be pretty low if the only routes you're running are the 51 or the T. However, if there's a full system in play that can get most people somewhat close to their destination, I think they'll find there are plenty of people out and about in Pittsburgh and plenty of demand for an option to take public transit home. I encourage PRT to look into this plan for night buses, but even if my particular plan isn't adopted, for the sake of reducing DUI in Pittsburgh and giving shift-based workers a way home, I at least encourage them to do something that resembles a full system at night. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to see these ideas put into practice, please share these videos as widely as possible and like and subscribe to get them out to more people. Please click on the link in the description or at the top of the channel page to suggest these ideas to Pittsburgh Regional Transit. And if you have any ideas yourself for how to improve the transit network in Pittsburgh, please leave them in the comments below or send an email to pittsburghtransitideas@gmail.com. If I like them, maybe I'll make a video about it. I'll see you soon with my next idea, river lines, or maybe circumferentials, or maybe a different topic. I haven't quite decided yet. But I will see you soon. Thank you.